Looks like the recording started. Cool.
Cool.
Who are you?
I'm Amanda Lee Franck. I make art and I make games too. I make art for the games that I make and also for other people's games. I think that's about it. I've kind of like, I do a lot of things about garbage. That's what I'm known for, and I feel really good about that.
The brand is just is cute animals and trash.
Not really. I mean, well, okay, so it's a little bit cute animals, but I like to think at least that it's not entirely cute animals. And the thing that I'm working on right now is extremely not cute animals.
Well, I mean, it's vampires on a cruise, so.
Mm-hmm. Well, yes. So I'm trying to I'm like a little bit sensitive about trying not to make I don't like want to get put into the box of doing things that are very cute.
Sure.
And I don't think, even though like a lot of the stuff in the garbage barge is very charming, and when I'm writing, I tend to default to doing things that I think are funny because I'm basically writing to amuse myself while I'm doing it. I'm trying to push my work a little bit in a direction away from that, and it's getting to be really exciting. So like, I'm starting in a place where things are funny, and I'm trying to add in more stuff that is, I don't know, more like brutal or mean or like gross.
I mean, so I first became aware of you because of Zine Quest with you got a job on the garbage barge. And I want to talk more in a little bit about like your entrance and how that came about and things like that. But I don't know that I would ever independently describe the work you've done as cute, right? Like there's little smatterings here and there that could be interpreted that way. I think there's a word like next to cute, which is more in line with what you were describing, which is, I don't know, whimsical or like old school fantastical.
Go whimsical.
in like a Grimm's fairy tales sort of way, right? Like there are aspects of it that are deeply horrifying, but it's wrapped up in this way that if you just scan it at first glance, you're like, oh, that's adorable, and then you dig in and you're like, oh, that's fucked. Yeah.
That's what I think that's a really interesting thing to think about. And something that I really hope I'm getting at. Like, you can start with something that is on the surface like really sweet, like a bug society or whatever, and all of the bugs are very nice and pleasant to you. But you think about it for a little while, and you think about what would happen in a society where everyone is intelligent, but everyone also knows they're only going to live for like about a year. That's it. That's all the time you have. And it becomes like deeply heartbreaking once you actually delve into what that means for a little while. And the game that I ran, it got really sad really quick because people were making friends with these characters, and then a couple of sessions later, they'd all be dead.
I mean, using this specific example, right? Like fuck Woody Allen forever, but the film Ants that he's in, right? I always think that was pitched alongside A Bug's Life. That was the same release season, pretty much. It was a film that families and kids went to. There was a protracted military, just horrifying battle scene where like insects are being torn apart left and right, and it's ants versus termites, which are these gargantuan beasts. And it's like, yeah, it's a fun, in some ways, lighthearted kids thing, but when you dig into the reality of like cute animal lives, well, there's some pretty messed up stuff in nature, right? Like anything can go either way, and it can vacillate or oscillate between them.
I followed the Werner Herzog thinking about nature.
Chickens have horrible dead eyes.
That's part of it. I'm thinking more specifically about there's like this famous quote that he made that somebody filmed while he was making I think Fitzcarraldo,
Okay.
where he's like, I'm in the jungle and people think the jungle is wonderful and full of life, but all of these animals are screaming in pain.
I feel like that could also be maybe from Aguirre or something.
Yeah, well, both of them. I mean, it's the same thing, but they are. It's a terrible world. I mean, like to a certain extent, all of the humans are screaming in pain all the time too. It's, I don't know. I think it's part of what. In a way, I'm being extremely pretentious right now to think I could ever like make something that even approaches expressing that. But I believe in pushing myself as hard as I can. So maybe someday.
I'm just waiting for your like Swan's Way, just or your Gaddis, your JR or something like
I
that.
do a lot of work while in bed, so
Fair.
especially now.
It's a good place to experience the vast varieties of human experience. Okay, so I think this is a interesting topic, so I want to hammer into it a little bit more, right? Because I think this is a recent trend, right? And not immediately recent, but past 10, 15 years in the hobby, which is still pretty recent. For a long time, the influences were always front and center, and they were big, and they were loud, and they were brash, and subversion wasn't really the name of the game. Even when subversion occurred, it was pretty obvious. A gritty game looked gritty, and a fantastical game looked high fantasy. That seems to be shifting, right? The play between tonal and contextual and content is being explored much more than I think I remember from my childhood, but also like the more I learn about the hobby, the less I see that kind of stuff going back.
Do you think it has to do with people, instead of drawing really directly from like the fantasy or science fiction canon, people are starting to like pull in stuff from, I don't know, like other parts of literature, their own lives, or even like mythologies from different parts of the world and not just your European mythologies?
I think so certainly that is occurring, right? I don't know that I see it causally, right? I see a correlation. They're moving in tandem. But there's so much early spec fic that we now think of as broad and obvious, but took the personal experiences and thinking of the time, right? Like, and it can be something as low critical appraisal as like Zelazny's science fiction stories and magazines, or something as like up there as Flowers for Algernon, like a story about like like mental illness from ages ago that maybe is not the most nuanced, but still shows that people were considering the personal in these things. I, if anything, I think it's just we are more willing to cross wider gulfs to pull in new influences. And I think it's,
that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think it's a progressive hunt for novelty, right? Like,
incidentally, sorry, you're freezing up occasionally.
Oh,
so
crap.
if I get confused, that's why. Just every so often.
Good to know. And also moving forward, that means I'm gonna have to hunt down an Ethernet cable.
Right.
Thankfully, on my end, the recording doesn't seem to be getting too janky for me. So, but good to know. And if I ever need to repeat something, please let me know. I'm just thinking out loud here, right? So because it always needs to be said and prefaced, like, fuck Lovecraft forever. But when you look at like early spec fic and reaching across the aisle, so to speak, right? You can look at Lovecraft and Robert E. Howard, right? One dude writing in horror, one dude writing in fantasy, and they're crossing the aisle to collaborate with one another. Now we see that as not even a crossing of the aisle, right? That's barely even standing up and walking 2 feet. Horror and fantasy, there are so many games that have mixed those at this point that's not new. But at the time it was. And I think as we generate more output as a hobby, as an industry, you have to go farther to keep that sense of novelty. And so when new voices are coming in and they want to do something new, I think it inherently lends itself to a wider exploration than it once did.
Yeah, well, you want to make something that's got some teeth. And in order for it to have that, I think you have to either put something of yourself into it, or you have to put something in that like speaks to the time that we're in right now, rather than just creating a really blank fantasy world.
Totally.
I think the best stuff that is around is the stuff that does that. There's you can have something that's like a really good idea and that's very like charming or whimsical or beautiful, but if it doesn't have something underlying it that's been thought out in a way, then it just kind of, I don't know, it skims over the top of your brain and it doesn't stick. And I don't know, I don't want to like name any examples of that, but it's possible to have all of the trappings of something that's like current without really getting into something that's meaningful. This is something that I'm mainly talking about it because I'm scared of doing that accidentally. Just like as a creator, the idea of making something that like just fits into the current genre that everyone's working in without doing something that's actually like meaningful and good, I worry about that constantly.
The word I want to use is probably incendiary, but it just strikes me. I think it's vapid, right? It's not that it's bad, and there are lots of products that I admire from a purely aesthetic consideration. I have boxes and boxes full of books that are gorgeous to look at and do nothing for me, and I would never run them at the table. And I think that's still good work, right? I'm glad those people created those products, but it does feel kind of hollow. It doesn't give me anything to latch onto.
Yeah. So like, what are the things for you that feel like you latch onto them, like they've got some teeth that get into you?
It's a very good question. I, for various reasons, enjoy things that screw with player expectations. I like the cognitive dissonance of presenting a scene that people expect will play out one way and completely inverting those expectations. Honestly, I think that's why Garbage Barge was something I enjoyed so much. Was when I saw that Kickstarter, I was like, that's cute. right? Like that, because I scan through and it's Zine Quest and you're going through hundreds of projects and you're just like, oh, I like the art. Cool. And then it comes out and I'm going through it and I'm like, oh, okay. There's substantially more to this than just, oh, I like the art. And it is more in a way that is distinct from what I had expected given the aesthetics of the book. That's the kind of experience at this point that makes me, I mean, God, I literally have a game come in once every 2 days.
Oh my God.
Around the clock. That's just true all year. That's actually kind of slow at this point. For something to not just be immediately flip through and then go into a drawer or a box, or if it's a zine into a board and sleeve and then into a box, that's the experience that I need. Yeah. I don't know if there's any specific tone or content that hits me. It's how jarring the experience is of going through it, and to some extent novelty. If it is simply unlike other things I have seen before, in like any aspect of its presentation, that at least gets some recognition from me. I mean, how about you? How do you arrive at like the subject matter that you want to work with?
I think the trick for me is that it has to be something that I'm already super into. And I think the thing that happened, like I haven't made that many games yet. I've made like 3. That's nothing. But I made the Garbage Barge because my friends had started. We were all like running role-playing games for each other, and the experience of getting to play someone else's RPG that was your friend already, so you already know them, but now you know like what it's like inside of their own imagination. And it's like you sit down with them at the table and it's like you're being invited into their brain to like kick over boxes and get into fights and stuff, and it's amazing. And so this like book for me, this is basically what happens if you just like peel my brain open and like root around in there. That is what is inside. It was just the first thing I thought about, and pretty much everything in there, it seemed really obvious that it was something that would be in there. And to one extent or another, everything else I've been working on has been the same sort of thing. Granted, I don't know anything about cruises, but I've read that David Foster Wallace essay like 3 times now, so I know that. And I know a lot about vampires, or at least I can imagine a lot about them, so that one's easy. And the thing that I'm working on immediately right now is mostly all animals. They're I don't know, like biology and like evolutionary biology and stuff, like is a, I don't know, like an amateur interest that I've had forever. Like I love grew up watching like every David Attenborough documentary. I've seen them all more than once. They're delightful. And learning about the terrible things that animals can do to one another is just, I love it. It's really, really interesting. So I've tried to recreate that experience for other people to plan. And hopefully, because I'm really passionate about it, that will like work its way into the book and to anyone who engages with it.
I just one sounds great, so yes, I want to go to there. But I just find it very funny to compare anything someone's made to a story called A Supposedly Fun Thing I'll Never Do Again. is just I'm like that is a sentence I don't know most people want to associate with a book they create, but you know what? It kind of works. I get that David Foster
Well,
Wallace
it's an
story.
extreme human experience, right? Like, I've never been on a cruise, but I imagine it would be one of those extreme human experiences, like getting in a sword fight, where you'd really be put to the test.
Yeah.
Can you enjoy this?
Can you survive it?
Can you survive it? And then you add some vampires in to just make the like metaphor, really apparent, and so that it's more fun.
I'm very excited for it. I'll say that much. So how did you go from, or you know what, this is two parts. One, how did you get into games, period? And two, how did you go from someone involved with games as a private individual to someone who started making things for other people?
Like, I played games in high school, and then there was a pretty long break, and then just a couple of years ago, all of my friends in Chicago got back into it. We started running games for each other, regular D&D, old school style D&D stuff. People started making their own game systems. People started like writing their own things, and we would like hand off who is running the game every week, and it very quickly like became this driving force in my life, where it was every week I'm like a game or two games, or I'm running a game, or I'm writing something. I started doing illustrations, and I got a job with Gauntlet, their magazine Codex Scene, which publishes a lot of they do a lot of story game type stuff, and a lot of like really a lot of strange like indie game type stuff, and it's really great. And I bothered them until they let me draw pictures for them, which was very nice. So I was doing like their cover illustrations when the like Zine Quest 2 came around, and at that point I was like, well, I mean, it's just Zine Quest, right? Like, it doesn't matter if I do a bad job, no one's going to care because it's just Zine Quest. It's just a zine. So I like I went through my like stack of loose leaf pages and like scribbled on maps and stuff and typed it up and put together a page. And then my friends who had been playing in the game of the Garbage Barge that I had been running for like a year and a half at that point, they had written some songs to go with it. Because like once you're already playing games with each other, I guess that's the next step, is you start a band about it. And they let me use one of their songs, and I made a video, and then everyone got super excited. And it was crazy. And then everyone that like I really admired started like getting excited about it. And I asked them to put some stuff in the zine, and then I ended up with this huge like thing. It was crazy. And I'm really glad that it turned out everyone liked it, because for all I knew at the time, it might have just been terrible, because I really don't know what I'm doing.
You know what? Going back, what's something that predicts what I like? I really like when people have no idea what they're doing. Like, yeah, I love a really polished product, sure. But I have so many trad books. I have so many 500-page hardback 8.5 by 11 books that they're never going to open. They're just lined up on a shelf.
Yeah.
I'm excited when somebody's like, I just like this thing, and I'm going to do a weird thing and see if other people like it. That's the best stuff to come out, and has been for years as far as I'm concerned. Something I've...
Oh, we're frozen again.
Oh no, can you hear me?
Oh no, wait, you're back. Okay.
Cool.
Sorry about the awkward pause.
It's fine. Ultimately, these are bonus content. They're getting transcribed, and I can cut out all the weirdness. They just go on YouTube for people who are like, I want to put this on in the background while I play video games or something. But this this was a ZQ2 thing, and it is eventually going to be a book.
Awesome.
Definitely not a zine at this point.
Yeah.
So something that's been fascinating me increasingly is a lot of people seem to get involved in playing games with their own friend group at a really similar time. And on the one hand, I think if people are coming in through like 5e, okay, makes sense. They probably saw Critical Role, or, WotC's had a great bunch of years, and D&D has exploded in popularity. But I see a lot of people coming in not on 5e at around the same time. And I have no idea how or why. When you started playing again, right after this break since high school, was it that other friends of yours had come in through something trad? Okay.
I think there's a ton of people, because like your like story game style stuff has been around for long enough now that there are people who that's what they learned with.
Mm-hmm.
So like I don't really get Apocalypse World, but I get that people like it, and that's the style of stuff they want to play, and I think that's a whole separate group of people. And the thing that I'm really noticing now is I think like solo games are going to be really big.
I was not expecting that, but I fully agree.
They're cool. Have you tried a solo game?
I've played a few of the Wretched SRD based things. And then, I played like the fighting fantasy books of old. More on the board game side, in that world, there have been a lot of solo semi-story games with more board gaming mechanics. I gotta say, it's not my thing.
Yeah.
I find it fascinating because I think up until very recently, if you said you sat down and played a role-playing game by yourself, you were the saddest person possible. And it has become much more normal.
My experience with them is that a lot of them are like, it's almost like a guided writing exercise. And the fact that like if you're embarrassed about playing a role-playing game, you can do this one and not tell anybody. So like when I did Zine Quest this year, I had people message me like asking if the game that I put out there was a solo game. Like there are people going through Zine Quest like and just looking for solo games.
Really?
Yeah, I backed a game called The Barrier and the Sound, and it's a solo game about playing a video game.
Jay Walton's project. Yeah.
It looks so good.
The like 1-bit aesthetic is extremely my jam. I backed that one too.
Yeah, the music sounds great. I'm very excited about that, partially because the idea is like basically the most ridiculous thing you could possibly do.
Yeah.
But I think it also is going to be like legit, like good to play.
Yeah, I think this is so much of my experience in this hobby. The way that I approach it is having the thing I feel comfortable with, and then watching as something else blows up and having to get acclimated to it. Like I'm the same way, right? I don't love PBTA, but I got deep into the post-Forge indie scene for several years. To my oldest friends in the hobby are people that came only out of that scene. And it was never my shit. But I learned a lot about it. I have a feeling, especially with my UK-based friends, where solo seems to really be taking off. I'm just going to have to play a lot of solo games, and they might never be my thing, but there's something there. And there's something interesting and different, just a whole new direction for role playing, I think, coming out of that space. Um, that even if it's not what I want to do on a Saturday, is still like, for my academic weirdo brain, deeply exciting.
Mm. Yeah, I don't know. There's something kind of like when you sit down by yourself with like a piece of paper or whatever, and you set out all the stuff, and it feels like weirdly very intimate and like you're doing some sort of magic spell. There's something a little illicit about it too. That's like strange. I didn't expect it before I tried to play like a solo game or two, but you feel like it makes you feel like you're a little kid, like I don't know, like reading tarot cards or something. Like this thing that it's maybe a little bit dangerous or you're not supposed to be doing it just because you're all alone.
So that makes something click for me, which is why I think I don't like them.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's not an experience in my life I desire to revisit. Um, like being alone with a piece of paper is a thing I spent a lot of time doing, and I don't ever want to go back there.
Uh,
Um, but then that's why I don't make games, because
yep.
the process of sitting alone and letting my brain spill out onto paper, I think I would rather put pliers in my mouth and take out my own teeth.
Oh no. Yeah, okay, don't do that. I spend 90% of my living hours alone with a piece of paper, so
I mean,
I can see how it's not for everyone.
most of my friends do, right? Like
Yeah.
most of my friends are game designers, and so most of my friends do. And it's great, and I love that it works for them, and that I get to experience being in their head when something does come out. Um, but yeah, there's a reason the only thing I really do is interviews and shitpost, because at the end of the day, it allows me to interact. I hadn't really thought about it that way. Thank you. What got you excited from ZQ3 other than Barrier in the Sound?
That one got me really excited. That would have been definitely like my my main answer, because that one's like I don't know, it's just so weird. The like little graphic illustrations that are moving are so beautiful, and it's I think the thing that really got me about that is that it's the premise is kind of dumb. Like you're playing a solo game about playing a video game, but the fact that it's set in a specific location, that it's like it's got this, it seems like it's really grounded in this like area that's familiar to the designer, and that gave it that thing we were talking about earlier where you want something to have a sort of like bite to it. That's what did it for me, I think, was thinking about like the ocean waves and the sort of shoreline and all of this stuff. Like it really put me in a specific place just reading about it. And I don't know, that one is like super, it's just super exciting.
Yeah, I guess it hadn't been said, but it makes sense, right? So much of seeing the personal in a work is about specificity of experience, which in some ways it's an uneasy balance for game design, because by its very nature you need generalizability of experience for as many people to engage with the work as possible. But in order for it to have that bite, you need to have the complete opposite. Do you feel the scene is changing around that? Like, are people broadly becoming more open to less general experience stuff?
You froze, so ask me that exact question again, because
Sure.
I missed the whole first half.
Do you feel that the scene is changing and becoming more comfortable with less generalizable stuff, with more specific authorial, I guess, experiences. Um,
I would like think so, but I also like I haven't been like deep in the scene for long enough to really give
sure.
you a worthwhile answer. You know, like I know the artists that I really like and appreciate, and I think the people that I gravitate towards are the ones that put a lot of their own like life and stuff into there. And I think if that is happening, one of the big movers of that is people who are like from outside of the like Western European world, who are like making games that are specifically about the areas they live in. So like everything like ZXC is doing is, I would like fit firmly into that category. And
Yeah.
that stuff is amazing.
Yeah, just the whole RPGC movement.
Yeah.
Totally.
And that's stuff that it's purposefully like not broad, and
Yeah.
it's really exciting.
So who do you kind of admire?
I think as far as like in inventiveness and artistically, I think like everything that Scrap Princess has done is just amazing. I really love
Favorite
her
scrap
work.
work? Go.
Geez. Oh no. Man, there's that bear thing that's in the it's like a cave bear, and it's got lanterns stuck onto its horrible spines.
Okay.
And
Do you know what book is it from?
I think that's from the one about caves. What's the one of the Patrick Stewart one about
Veins
caves?
of the Earth?
Veins of the Earth. I think that's the Veins of the Earth creature.
Okay.
And actually, I can't remember anything else about it, but the drawing is really beautiful. But honestly, that's just the first thing that popped into my head.
Sure.
Because I think the way that she writes, just like elements of adventures, like anytime I read something that is just this tossed off little like scrap of information about an idea, it seems like the start of a crazy adventure. When the stuff that she wrote for the Garbage Barge, the salvage armory, everything in there is amazing. Like I've had a game that I was in and a game that I ran where we visited that place, and both times it was incredible because you get some like weird tool and you're like, I have a universal welder now, and it's obvious what that does. You can stick anything to anything else, and it's obvious that that's like, it doesn't involve like numbers or dice rolling or anything. It's just this like machine, and it does one thing, but the thing that it does is crazy, and it is totally up to the player to like decide how they're going to use it, and it's great.
How did you get Scrap on Garbage Barge?
We were friends on Instagram, and I was actually before I invited her to do Barge stuff, she invited me to do illustrations for a yet to be released book. It's in layout now, though, so it is coming. I've even seen like pages of it in layout. It's actually going to exist, which seems crazy because it's been like in process for like 3 years or something. But she wrote a whole cyberpunk setting. It's called New Futura. It's incredible. It's going to be super fun, and the book is crazy. It looks like an like old Wired magazine or something inside.
Okay.
It's extremely good. So I did a bunch of pieces for that, and yeah, it's going to be really great. And so I did that work for her, and then when the Garbage Barge started taking off, and I had a bunch of money, I asked her to write some stuff.
It's weird how these connections form. I think it must be such a surreal experience for outsiders, people not like within the very specific design discourse community, because I would not immediately think, oh, someone who does Codex cover art and scrap would be an obvious mix. But there's a previous working relationship and a social networking relationship. I think that goes back to us stepping outside of our verticals and the things that are the most immediately apparent collaborations, to make something new. Do you live off the L?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No,
That
it's
is
fine.
the L. It's like a block away.
It's
Where are you?
I am currently in upstate New York, but I spent most of quarantine in either Austin, Texas, or Pierre, South Dakota, and then for the past 3 months I've been back home in Manhattan.
Oh. Man, I love South Dakota.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, only to visit, not to live in.
You're literally the first person I've ever heard say that.
It's so beautiful. It's so flat. It's like what I'm used to, only like kind of exotic.
I mean, I've never heard, like, you're not wrong. It is so flat. Especially the eastern half of the state is just I don't think I've ever heard anyone say it positively. Where are you from that flatlands is like your comfortable place?
Ooh, Chicago.
Is
The
Chicago
Midwest.
is Chicago that flat?
Yeah, there's not a hill here.
Oh wow, I
I
had
mean,
no
there's
idea.
like there's a lake and there's like buildings, but it's hella flat.
Huh. I've never
This
actually
is
been to
Illinois.
Chicago, so.
Oh, well, it's not that great.
A ringing
I
endorsement.
got like really, because I'm like, even being someone who would in almost all cases prefer to be at home alone, not talking to anyone, I've been like desperate for human contact enough that I've been semi-seriously considering like a couple, when like last month, someone on Twitter was like, well, we need to have a summer zine quest because zine quest is there's too much. We need to start like breaking it out. And I was like, summer zine quest, like July 2022, my backyard, Chicago. and we just don't bring our zines and trade them. And that's zine quest. That's summer zine quest. That's my idea. And if I don't think better, then I might try to make it happen.
I mean, if you ever find yourself up in Toronto for Breakout Con, that's a thing that happens.
Yeah.
There's just a day where all the people who brought their own zines get together and trade zines. It's great. And I'd be down for a summer version. It would probably be sweatier, but, you know.
Yeah.
I'm Italian, I'm used to it. Okay, so dicey topic, and feel free to be like, I don't want to talk about that. What do you think happens to ZineQuest after the way ZQ3 closed out?
I don't know. It's like so my personal plan right at the moment was like, I'm gonna do one more boat book and then I'll have a trilogy and I'll call it Bad Boats and I'll release them all together in one book for anyone who missed them. And I was thinking, like, you know,
I don't know why I find that so funny. Sorry. It was really good.
Oh no.
Continue. Sorry,
you froze again.
Oh, sorry. I was just laughing. I just really like the name Bad Boats. But continue, sorry.
Yeah, so that's my, like, that has been my future plan, like one more zine quest. And then that, but I don't know, like I'll feel it out next time. I feel like having having a big like festival thing, which specifically as part of its sort of like goal is that it's a low barrier to entry and that everyone should try it because it's just a zine and we're all here making zines together. Like, that's why I did it. I wouldn't have done it if it had been just like me putting out a Kickstarter all by myself. And having it happen at one time so that everyone is talking about it is also really good. And I would mostly hate to see that go away because I think it makes it really easy to find brand new people who are making their own weird stuff. And in a way, I almost feel like maybe what this is it's time for me to like not do it because I've done it twice. And so like I get out of Zine Quest and make room for people who have never done it before. And maybe like it doesn't happen, or maybe we all move it to itch or whatever, which also seems reasonable. Or maybe it stops being a Kickstarter thing and starts being a thing in my backyard.
I mean, if it does, I'll show up. I guess the thing that I'm wondering is, have we already crossed that line of professionalism getting in the way of finding new voices? When I look at like the like back accounts and the funding raised, and even just the professionalism of the pages, it even from 2 to 3 feels like a major jump.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I wonder about that too. Like I've specifically like kind of tried this time and the last time to find the stuff that I was just like one person and they've never released anything before to find those people and support them. But it's totally a fair point. I mean, the other thing I think about is that in terms of professionalism, no one is a really big company.
Sure.
who's like I'm barely getting by, and I'm sure everyone else is barely getting by also. So to a certain extent, it's just kind of splitting hairs.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't know. I will say that as someone who was not doing any of this stuff, like to whatever extent I'm doing it professionally, was not doing any of this stuff professionally like 3 years ago. I've tried to like be in various other parts of the art world before in my life, and I've never like had an experience where I was actually like welcomed or helped along or given support like I have from all of the various parts of the RPG community, and that's been really nice. So, and I don't know, I hope it stays that way, and I hope that I can keep, sort of being part of that part of what everyone's doing.
I mean, I too hope it stays that way. We seem to go through peaks and valleys of that experience, and we certainly seem to be at a peak, and I hope we can stay at this high plateau for a long time, because when we're more welcoming, we get more interesting people in. How do I put this? Okay, if you were talking to your past self and they didn't know you were future you, but you knew what the experience of starting out was like, what kind of support would you have given them?
You totally froze up. I missed that whole question. You have to start over.
No worries. Okay, so you're talking to...
I'm talking to my past self.
Okay, that part. They don't know you're you. So they just think you're some other person named Amanda. But you know what past you would need. from support? What does that look like? What do you provide that early version of you that you may not have gotten from somebody else?
I mean, like a living wage is the obvious one, right?
Sure, yeah.
UBI. Basically.
Fair, okay.
I'm sorry, that's very, like, I know that sounds like maybe cynical, but
it's a good answer.
I would say, like, other than enough money to buy snacks, I would, like, the support I would want to give my younger self would be in terms of I don't know, like feeling like I had the right to go put myself out into the world. That's been a hard one for me. It has been a long journey of convincing myself that anything I make is, like, worth anyone else's time to look at. I mean, like, even like Zine Quest, I only did that because I was able to tell myself, like, it doesn't matter. It just Zine Quest. If it's dumb, it doesn't matter because no one cares because it's just a zine. That was like a little trick so that I would feel like it was, I was good enough or like allowed to take part in a like wider sort of activity. It's really easy to not feel like you are allowed to make things. And like once you've made something and people have liked it, then it's easier to convince yourself.
Yeah.
So that's not so hard for me anymore, but I could have done it earlier had I known.
Is there a way for us old heads, right? And the hobby moves so fast that you've been around 3 years. I'll call you an old head. I think you've earned it. For us who have some kind of network, and in your case, a growing standing as a kind of person who creates work that people aspire to. What does it look like to make new people feel less like they don't have the right to produce?
That's a very good. It's my cat. Hey! Oh, I'm gonna stall while I think. This is a cat. I mean, thinking about what happened to me, and what really helped me was that I got like given a chance by multiple people, like Jason Cordova with the Gauntlet. Like I had like a little portfolio, and I was like, I really want to make art for RPGs. Here's some art I've made. And I like sent him 2 emails, and he gave me a chance. And then he liked and I worked really, really hard. But I was kind of like a big nobody, basically. And he let me come in and do it because I wanted to. And that was like a really big thing for me. Or like Scrap Princess talking to me on the internet and liking my art a lot. Like those 2 things, like having people that I admired or that had the power to like be like, yeah, sure, do an illustration for this game. That was what made me feel at first like I don't know, that there was like room for me to keep working. So like one of the things that like I think is cool that I'm frozen.
Oh no, you're fine. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, you're not frozen at all. I can see you just fine.
Okay, great. So like the Scrap Princess book that's not out yet. She, rather than, even though she like illustrates, like does an incredible job with illustration, she invited a bunch of people to do illustrations for it, who are like maybe like less well-known people. And so that's like, I think a really good thing that you can do as someone who's like creating things. And I also think just like continuing to try to make connections between people, like having multiple people work on a book, maybe trying to like plan some sort of little convention so I can like finally meet all of the folks I've been talking to on the internet. And then more other people can come to it. I don't know, like just inviting more people in and giving them space to put work out there all seems really good to me.
I agree. I think that's as good an answer as I have, right?
I think it's like something I should remind myself of more, especially because I'm like, I can do art and I can write, so I'll just do like all of my own stuff. But there's a lot of worth in like working with other people, even if it's more logistically complicated.
I mean, I think the mashup, right, that we've kind of talked about multiple times, that novel mixing of influences that makes us really excited, especially when they're personal. Yes, a single individual can create that. They often do. I think you almost inherently create it when you collaborate. And as I think about it, like a lot of my favorite collectives that produce work are that. They're people who you wouldn't necessarily expect working together, who give one another a shot, find, despite disparate tastes, they have a good working relationship, and they produce really interesting contrasts in their work.
That's one of the things I like about doing illustrations for other people. Also, is that like as like an artist, I like to really have a framework to push against, and having somebody else's words to work with, to be able to say like, okay, this is the confines that I have to work within, their idea of this game, and my job is to like both express this as faithfully as I can, given like what I get from reading it, and also to like to as much as I can to put more in there, because like the art can, rather than just like illustrating what something looks like, there you could like add the possibility of story in with the artwork you're producing. I mean, you kind of can bring life to things that maybe there wasn't room for in the text. And so if I can figure out a way to do that without like overstepping the original conception, then that's like what I really want to do. And it is really like invigorating and inspiring to work in that way.
I imagine you just gave a very neat summation of what makes the experience of a solo RPG enjoyable. And probably what makes hacking games enjoyable.
I mean, that's what I like about like writing games too. Like it's like writing a novel or like a story or whatever, that's too big. I want to have constraints. I want to have to be forced to like tell this story via charts and numbers.
I like it. All right, we're basically at the hour mark, which is where I flip it and go, hey, you have anything you haven't talked about that you want to talk about?
Like we didn't talk about the animal game that I'm working on.
Shoot, let's do it.
Do you want me to introduce it real quick?
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm super excited about it. So it's going to be done pretty soon. I'm on like the 3rd editing pass, and I'm like halfway through the pictures. It's for Games Omnivorous. They have this series called Manifestus Omnivorous, where they invite people to do a
You're
game
doing you're doing one of the next round of those?
Mhm.
Nice.
Yes, and it's called Mouth Brood, and it's a hex crawl. It's a 3-level hex crawl.
Okay.
So there's a bottom layer and a middle layer and a top layer, and you can travel up and down as well as across.
Okay.
And it's a wrecked biosphere. It's like a geodesic dome,
Okay.
and it's full of animals that have been stuck in there for millions and millions of years. And it's just evolved into this horrifying tangled mess of creatures that are eating each other and being eaten. And they're all like dangerous, and they'll give you a bad disease or a parasite or bite you, but some of them won't because they're just, regular old herbivores. But you don't know that yet because you have never been in there before. And I'm really excited about it. It's like 90% of it is just this bestiary, and it's going to be completely illustrated, and all of the animals just lead you to more animals. So
I am a big fan of Games Omnivorous. I have all of that series so far. So I expect I will be paying shipping from Portugal.
yes.
Again, yeah. Nice. All right, that sounds rad as fuck.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. I'm very, very excited about it. Look, I can show you some of the drawings. Ooh.
Nice.
I'm trying to get that to. This is hard because it's mirrored.
Yeah.
So if
you're moving to the right, it goes left.
Horrible mushrooms, and whatever these guys are. And this thing. This thing's really great.
These are deeply gross, and I love them.
Yeah. Yeah, everything in this one is terrible. They're all screaming.
I like it. So
this summer.
This summer, okay. I was going to ask when is it out, and then I was like, I have no idea if she can answer that. Okay, I'll keep an eye out. And obviously, I'm sure you're going to tweet about it when it is out, and I'll absolutely smash the RT on that.
Nice.
And then Book 3? Is that just like gestating?
It's gestating, but maybe submarine.
Okay.
If you think about it, the worst boat of all.
Yeah.
Being as how it is under the water, not on top of as your typical boat is.
Yeah. Yeah. The most terrifying boat ride possible.
Yes.
Trapped in a metal tube.
Yeah, it's just going to be a game where you play through Das Boot.
Like the war movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a great movie.
I'm looking forward to your illustrations of Rutger Hauer. Cool. Anything else?
Nah, I think that's it.
Are there still copies of Garbage Barge?
Yeah, Exalted Funerals got them.
Okay.
And Four Rogues in Canada has them.
Okay.
If you want a physical copy, I got a couple in the back.
It's up on Itch. Is it on Drive-Thru or just Itch?
Just Itch.
Okay. That's a whole other conversation.
I bet it is. I didn't put any games up there because I just wanted to avoid the whole issue.
It's smartly done. Really, really for the best. All right. Well, this is the first time we ever spoke, I think, outside of like the internet. Glad you responded.
It's been great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'm going to hit stop recording.
Okay. Do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And bye.